Tonight, once again, the Democratic Party, the media mob, they want to impeach your duly elected president of the United States over what is a big, huge pile of nothing. This is even 1,001 times weaker than the Russia witch hunt, the Ukrainian witch hunt. After days and days and days, nonstop psychotic hysteria about a phone call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine, call that nobody knew the contents of. Even without knowing the contents, the raging Democrats, they announced impeachment anyway, with no knowledge. Well, just stop and think about this for a second. Now, clearly, they weren't going to make the mistake of allowing a special counsel like Mueller to decide again and disappoint them again after 3 years. Now, after the impeachment announcement, the transcript has, in fact, been released. This is after they said they would impeach him over what they didn't know was in it. No quid pro quo, no discussion of U.S. aid, no misconduct at all whatsoever. Zero, zip, nada, nothing. And according to reports, this so-called whistleblower is a partisan hack whose claims are politically motivated, total BS, who is actually represented by a law firm. They put up like billboards and they pay officials who leak dirt, illegal in some cases, against Donald Trump. Or as the Wall Street Journal's Kimberly Strassel put it, another internal attempt to take out a president on the basis of another non-smoking gun. This is where it gets serious. We have in this country now deep state operatives. They're alive and well. And here is how bad things have gotten in this country today because of this anti-Trump rage psychosis. The president of the United States can't make a phone call to a foreign leader without getting spied on and stabbed in the back by unelected bureaucrats, people weaponizing the powerful tools of intelligence and turning it on the American people and their president. You think about this. Our president's trying to lead a government, and he has people within his own government that are actively working against him every single day. The only favor President Trump requested from his Ukrainian counterpart during that call was an inquiry into election hacking from 2016. I thought the mob and Democrats cared about that. And by the way, the Ukrainian president, he brought up Rudy Giuliani in the course of the conversation. And as for the brief conversation about Joe 30330 Biden, the president was right. The president had promised this country to drain the swamp. He has a constitutional duty, a sworn duty, to find out if the former vice president of this country abused his office, your tax dollars, to protect his own son from possible indictment and financial gain. And notice that the same people, same crowd that were wrong with their conspiracies and lies and their hoax for nearly 3 years, raging against the president, they're never going to say a word about Biden. Yeah, we have him on tape, leveraging your taxpayer money to fire the prosecutor that he knows is investigating his son for corruption because the New York Times and others gave him a heads up, not a peep. I got to be honest. I'm very honest tonight, as I always am. I worry about the future of this country and this republic. It's a republic if you can keep it, Ben Franklin said. I'm beginning to wonder if we can keep it under these conditions. You read that transcript that they released. The president didn't have to release it. You're going to find the Ukrainian president. He's already familiar with Biden and his son and the prosecutor that was fired for no reason except to get rid of the investigation into his son. And he already, by the way, planned to investigate with a new attorney general equivalent in their country. But as of yet, to be clear, according to the DOJ, President Trump has not asked our attorney general Barr to investigate Biden. The president never once mentioned it to our attorney general Barr, nor did the AG ever contact the country of Ukraine. And as the president of Ukraine emphasized today, President Trump did nothing wrong. He gets it. Too bad the mob and the Democratic Party that is obsessed with, they can't beat him at the ballot box. Watch.
We had, I think, good phone call. It was normal. We spoke about many things, and so I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me. Yes.
Nobody. Zero misconduct here from President Trump. Zero conflicts of interest. Zero abuse of power. That doesn't matter in this environment of rage and hatred and really a power grab. They want their power back so bad. And that's the Democrats, and that's your media, the mob. They're blinded by hate. Now they're crippling the ability of a president of the United States to fulfill his enumerated power. Remember, he's the commander-in-chief. What foreign leader is ever going to want to talk freely to our president knowing he's being spied on? That means they're being spied on. And also, the president does have a sworn duty to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. That's getting to the truth. Joe Biden is on tape bragging about law breaking. That doesn't seem to concern anyone that hates Trump. Instead, they have publicly called for Trump's impeachment. That was even before they knew what was in it. They've been doing this since 2017, the first month the president's in office. And Pelosi's announcement yesterday about an official impeachment inquiry, it means nothing. It was a nothing. That's what they've been doing the whole time anyway. They've been conducting a never-ending impeachment inquiry since President Trump and Melania Trump came down the escalator in Trump Tower in 2015. What we're seeing playing out over the course of 3 years is now a party that has put, pay attention to this, their rage, their hatred, whether they know it or not, they're now putting their hatred ahead of President Trump, but more importantly, above all else, above what is in the best interest of this country. And that would be for a president to be able to freely conduct foreign policy as commander-in-chief. And today, President Trump called them out for what is their disgusting, destructive, petulant, malicious, never-ending behavior. Good for him. Take a look.
What these Democrats have done to ruin lives is so sad. I have seen people with only good intention. They came to Washington because they wanted to make the United States and the world a better place. And they went home, they were dark. When you see what happened with the viciousness, and when you see little Adam Schiff go out and lie and stand at the mic, smart guy, by the way, stand at the mic and act like he's so serious, and then he goes into a room with Nadler, and they must laugh their asses off. They must laugh their asses off. But it's so bad for our country.
Bad for our country. The president's right. Oh, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm leaving in 6 hours. You either fire that prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion. You're not going to get it. The guy that's investigating my son. And son of a bee, they fired him. It's all on tape. Democrats, they're fake, they're phony. Impeachment hysteria. This now has serious, significant consequences for the future of this country if you're paying attention. We've seen the contents of the phone calls leaked between Trump and Mexico and President Trump in Australia, now President Trump in Ukraine, and yet to date, no one is even asking how the so-called whistleblowers' claims were leaked. No one. The political agenda. How did they get this information? Why are we spying on a president of the United States repeatedly with no consequences? And now no president in the future is ever going to be able to have a candid, honest conversation with another world leader on the phone. That makes us less safe in the end, doesn't it? Now, the trust has forever been ruined. It's beyond a terrible precedent. This has national security implications for our kids and grandkids if you don't care about yourself. The Democrats, it's their political game. Look at all the hypocrisy surrounding this one very issue. Democrats, they claim that Trump should be impeached over some kind of non-existent quid pro quo when there was no quid and no pro and no quo election collusion with Ukraine. It's like 4 separate investigations. No Trump-Russia collusion. In reality, the DNC, the mob, their friends, the extension of their press office, they have been colluding themselves with Ukraine since 2016. We've reported it, and Joe Biden has now opened the door to re-examine it all. Remember John Solomon, right here on this program, March 2016. A contractor for the Democratic National Committee was pressing the Ukrainian embassy. Why? Because the DNC operative wanted to find Russian dirt on Donald Trump. The same DNC contractor also requested that Ukraine's president publicly trash President Trump's then campaign manager, Paul Manafort. And that's not all. Earlier this month, in a meeting with Ukraine's new president, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, he reportedly also threatened to cut off U.S. aid. That's what Trump didn't do, that they claim he did, and he did it, if the country opened an investigation into Joe Biden. And in a letter from Senators Bob Menendez, Dick Durbin, Pat Leahy, we got it all chronicled. All the evidence you need. Democrats again threatening to withhold aid if the government of Ukraine stops investigating Trump-Russia collusion. Can you say quid pro quo? I can, and that's where it happened with the Democrats. Once again, Russian collusion was Hillary, the boomerang. Once again, oh yeah, quid pro quo, Biden, Menendez, Leahy, Durbin, and Chris Murphy. Take a look.
They got almost no attention, but in May, CNN reported that Senators Robert Menendez, Richard Durbin, and Patrick Leahy wrote a letter to Ukraine's Prosecutor General expressing concern at the closing of 4 investigations they said were critical. In the letter, they implied that their support for U.S. assistance to Ukraine was at stake, and that if they didn't do the right thing, they wouldn't get any assistance. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound familiar?
It sure does. They're all guilty of that which they accuse President Trump of. And in this case, just like in the Russia collusion case, the only one paying for Russian lies and disinformation impact the election in 2016 was Hillary. It fits a pattern. For example, remember when Obama, I'll have more flexibility, tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility after the election. We got the tape in case you forgot.
This is my last election. Yeah, after my election, I have more flexibility.
I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir.
I don't remember one Democrat calling for the impeachment of, oh, don't tell the American people, we'll do it after the election, after that promise. What about collusion? Democrats really care about Russia collusion? Where was the outrage? We have the cowardly Schiff, the biggest liar in Congress. We caught him on tape. He was trying to acquire naked pics of Trump, naked pictures. Well, he was being pranked by people he thought were connected to the Russians. Yeah, Russia collusion, looking for dirt on an opponent. And we've got the tape. Listen.
And she met with Trump and she brought him 1-hour Russian girl, celebrity, Olga Buzova, who also known as a person with a strange reputation.
Olga, and how do you spell her name?
Olga Buzova.
And what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
And so Putin was made aware of the availability of the compromising material?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. We will be back in touch with you through our staff to make arrangements to obtain these materials for our committee and for the FBI, and I appreciate your reaching out to us.
I got to admit, I really love that. What is the nature of the compromise? Can you give me the dirt? Naked pics of Trump. Yeah. Oh, did Vladimir see them? But of course, Vladimir see the naked pics. Goes much deeper than a man on tape colluding with a Russian, the cowardly Schiff. One guy's been lying to us for 3 straight years. He just keeps lying. Biggest liar in Congress, a cowardly Schiff. Come on the program. Full hour, 3 hours of radio. All yours. You and me, mano a mano. Democrats, you're really concerned about election interference? Where is your feigned, phony outrage about Hillary Clinton's dirty Russian dossier? Or what the New York Times said late in the game was likely Russian disinformation from the beginning. If they cared about obstruction, where's the hysteria over the 35,000 emails subpoenaed that were deleted, acid washed, and little phones hit with hammers? What happened to that? If they truly cared about allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse, you know, the I Believers demanding the Democratic, where are they demanding the Democratic lieutenant governor resign from office? Oh, they only do it when they can bludgeon Trump. Where are the I Believers with the Democratic Party and Bill Clinton's behavior and Juanita Broderick, who bravely came forward, or Kathleen Willey or Paul Jones? No I Believers then. And we can't forget about the big elephant in the room, which is sleepy, creepy, crazy Uncle Joe wants to be president of the United States. That's not going to happen. In fact, if I make a prediction tonight, pay close attention. Joe Biden, Joe 30330, will get crushed by Elizabeth Warren in the primary, because what the Democrats are about to do is throw him overboard, because they know that tape is damning. His clear quid pro quo and government abuse of power surrounding Ukraine and China is going to sink his campaign.